Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan Chad here for this edition of Nate at 8. Still tracking some showers and thunderstorms across the area this evening. Thankfully, flooding has not come to fruition for us here in the eastern Ohio, the northern panhandle, and has stayed further towards our east, more in the central and western part of PA. But showers and thunderstorms linger, and we'll still watch over the next 2 to 3 hours or so. But while this coverage remains in place for that potential for flooding, but it will start to drop at this point for the overnight hours. The coverage will start to fall off as well, and this will likely yield then a drier day tomorrow. We still can have some showers and thunderstorms, but it's more hit or miss likely Wednesday. So with respect to today, it's likely drier for your Wednesday. Now by Thursday, showers and thunderstorms turn likely again. So we'll deal with scattered showers and thunderstorms and likely deal with them from the morning into the afternoon. By the evening, we're going to dry up. And then we have a drier, warmer pattern that lies ahead Friday, the weekend, and even into early next week, where there's great odds that we are dry there for a handful of days for the weekend going into early next week. So there is a dry stretch in sight, but here near term, still some showers and thunderstorms to contend with. Our temperatures right now across the area into the 70s. We're dealt with that humidity ramping up for today, just unbearably humid. These dew points 70 plus across the tri-state area. And that's the point where almost just start to instantly sweat when you step outside the door, and we'll likely maintain that real humid air mass in place for Wednesday. By Thursday, it likely drops throughout the day with a cold front passage, and we do see some relief as we go into the weekend, although it's still humid. I think it's just more tolerable, I think is a good way to put it, Friday into Saturday. So I think, those dew points that are mid to lower 60s, it still feels humid to us, but it's not unbearably humid like it is now and like it is likely going to be through Wednesday. We'll notice again the humidity fall off throughout the day Thursday, but it does likely pick back up Saturday. By Sunday, then it's going to be unbearably humid again, and even possibly by the end of the day Saturday, it could turn unbearably humid. Joe, good evening to you. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Nate at 8. So the showers and thunderstorms across the region, really at this point, we've been tracking just one area. That was in northern Noble. Now it's into the southern part of Belmont County. Not so much Monroe. It's trended more into southern Belmont, and that's where we're seeing that current thunderstorm. That's what we've really been keeping a close eye on at this past hour. Outside of that, we have some pockets of heavier rain, but nothing that's really worth monitoring. Thankfully, it's light enough that it's not going to be producing any flooding or any severe weather concerns, outside of what we're seeing there into what is now southern Belmont. So that's what we've been keeping a very close eye. Again, over this past hour, we're still getting some heavy downpours with that. That's going to be tracking through southern Belmont into the northern part of Marshall, likely staying just south of the Wheeling area, but it is going to be tracking into the northern part of Marshall County. And we've been watching just, again, some heavy downpours with this, not producing any flooding as of yet, but we've been seeing rainfall rates upwards of even about 2 inches or even a little bit more than that per hour with this. And certainly it's a torrential downpour as it passes, but thankfully it has maintained enough their progression and fast enough movement that has not yielded flooding through Noble or into southern Belmont. But that is the one we're going to be watching for at this point. As we extend throughout the next hour, I think overall our risk for flooding is thankfully, stayed out of out of the area for today. And I think, at this point that risk is going to start to lower, and for the overnight hours, then that risk is low. And thankfully that's the case again throughout the daytime tomorrow. Good evening there, Austin. It's starting to rain here in Wetzel, Austin says. Thanks for the report there, Austin, joining us this evening on YouTube. Lola, good evening. No more rain. We need recovery. I agree. Absolutely. Pray for all those affected by these hard rain. Absolutely, Lola. It's been horrendous to see the flooding that's occurred into our area here as of recent. So certainly good news that dry stretch is in sight. I know, fortunately, we still have to get through, this evening. We still have to get through Thursday. But by the time we get into the end of the day Thursday, by Thursday evening, especially Thursday night, we're going to dry up. And from there, I think we can string together at least a handful of days that it does likely remain dry. So we're certainly looking forward to that. Good evening there, Sean. Thanks for joining us this evening. Joe, when is the mugginess going to stop? Unfortunately, not too much relief here near term, Joe. Like we said, that the humidity does drop off some going into Friday. I think it's, not unbearably humid. It's more tolerable by the time we get into Friday. And that even falls throughout the day Thursday. So I think even by Thursday night, it's the story as well. And that carries over into Friday. It'll start to pick back up then throughout the day Saturday. So by this weekend, especially later Saturday and again on Sunday, it's just back to unbearably humid, similar to where we're at right now. So unfortunately, there's some relief, but unfortunately not a whole lot. I don't foresee any comfortable, refreshing air in place here near term. It's just going to be hot and humid as we look ahead into early next week. So not much relief here near term. And I don't think there's much really in sight either. It's going to be a pretty humid stretch of weather there, Joe. Robert saying, hello, everyone. Hello there, Robert. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Nate at 8 on this evening, on this Tuesday evening. So there's that air. Again, one storm we're continuing to track through southern Belmont. It's going to be moving there into the northern part of Marshall County, tracking very close to the Wheeling area. I've seen some heavy downpours, but thankfully fast enough storm movement that have not had flooding concerns come to fruition with this, but still some heavy downpours with this. That's the heaviest rain that we have into our area right now, much lighter looking further north of I-70. And then besides that area, the heavier shower there moving into the southern part that's south of Woodsfield, moving towards New Martinsville. Like Austin mentioned, as toward Wetzel County, seeing some of that rain break out, but there's a pocket there, some heavier rain with that shower that's just now moving into the southern part of the north of Grandview, southern part of Monroe, that'd be tracking towards the New Martinsville area. So a heavier shower there. And that's the thing, with as much moisture as present in the atmosphere for today, we're getting some quite heavy downpours, even just within these showers as well. But the issue the issue where flooding concerns come into play is with these thunderstorms, where we're getting those even heavier downpours. And we've seen this come to fruition, but again, thankfully not for our area. We've seen a lot more flooding concerns further east of us for this afternoon and evening, especially towards Johnstown, even including, while not still active earlier in the afternoon, northern Allegheny County, north of Pittsburgh. So we did have some flooding concerns just east of us, but thankfully that has not come to fruition for us here in the eastern Ohio, the northern panhandle. We're not quite out of the woods yet, unfortunately. Again, we're going to keep an eye on that thunderstorm moving through Belmont into the southern part of Marshall. May very well clip the portions there of Ohio County as well. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. Outside of that, the risk will start to lower as we go throughout this evening, as the coverage, a lot of this will start to fall off as well throughout the evening. We still have that flood watch that it remains in effect. Goes up until 10 o'clock. Again, this just coincides when we start to lose the daytime heating. You'll notice that a lot of this activity will likely start to taper off, and we're going to be back to, we can see some rain continue, but it's likely much more hit or miss, just a few showers as we go into tomorrow morning. So as the coverage starts to drop off, the flooding risk will start to lower overnight, and does look to remain low for tomorrow as well. As again, likely not a whole lot of precipitation in place as we go throughout Wednesday, but we can maintain a few of those showers and thunderstorms in place going throughout the day. I think we could spot a little bit more sunshine tomorrow with respect to what we had for today. That can bump highs around towards the mid 80s into Wednesday afternoon. Again, it's still unbearably humid. So the humidity similar to what we have for today, again for Wednesday, unbearably humid, highs topping off mid-lower 80s, likely feeling a little warmer than the actual air temperature for Wednesday. But the showers and some thunderstorms, they're much more hit or miss, and the flooding and severe threat for the daytime tomorrow does look to remain low. So that is certainly good news throughout the day Wednesday. Now, that being said, unfortunately, the potential there for impacts will pick back up Wednesday night into Thursday. So while the risk look low throughout the daytime tomorrow, we will be watching then Wednesday night into Thursday for the potential to pick back up. And it'll start with that potential for severe weather. Less so flooding and more so severe weather for Wednesday night. And the issue we're going to be watching is a line of thunderstorms that'll develop towards our west and likely develop and become severe. There's a good chance, unfortunately, for severe weather further west of us as we see that line develop earlier into the day where there's more of that daytime heating for that line to tap into. So that will be further to our west, and you can see Futurecast picking up on this. So there's 8 o'clock. Notice where the line is, likely more into the central part of Ohio for Wednesday evening, and you can see that line there, showers and thunderstorms. It progresses further east. It is anticipated to weaken by the time it reaches us, which will likely be closer towards midnight. So there is certainly good news that with the late timing, we're not likely getting the brunt force of this line. But that being said, it can maintain enough strength to still produce impacts. And what we're concerned about with this would be damaging winds. That's our primary concern with this line as it reaches us. Yes, anticipated a weekend, and hopefully to the extent of what Futurecast is hinting at or our model's hinting at, that would be great to see that line really weaken by the time it reaches us. But there is that potential as it maintains enough strength to still produce some damaging winds in spots as it moves through the area. And that'll be closer likely towards midnight tomorrow night. Once we get past that, that severe risk then will lower into Thursday morning. I do think, though, we could still see that potential for some strong to severe thunderstorms redeveloping Thursday afternoon. This is as a cold front is still pushing through our area. So the front's not quite through yet by Thursday afternoon, but it will move through the area at this point. So by Thursday evening, once we get past that front, that's when rain chances will likely lower. So that's why we will likely dry up by the end of the day Thursday, but from the morning into at least the early afternoon, we'll likely maintain some of these showers and thunderstorms. So the front gets held up far enough into the afternoon. That's when we could see some additional strong to severe thunderstorms develop going into the afternoon hours on Thursday. Now, during the daytime Thursday, especially if we get those thunderstorms in the mix, producing more heavy downpours, that's when the flooding risk will then return as well. So less so much Wednesday night and the potential then returning more for the daytime on Thursday, especially going into the afternoon hours, the potential for floodings there. The overall risk looking to Thursday does look lower with respect to the risk we had for today, but the potential is there. It does likely stay more localized or isolated, but we will be watching then through the daytime Thursday for the potential for some additional flooding. Again, and by the time we get into the end of the day Thursday, we're likely drying up. And from that point, we see a dry period of weather settle into the region. So to recap, again, the potential impacts, you'll notice the excessive rainfall risk. This is our flash flooding concern. Notice it's not in our area tomorrow. That's why I say the risk does look low for us going through Wednesday. But you'll notice by Thursday, does return, right? And this is extending from 8 a.m. Thursday going to 8 p.m. Thursday evening. So this is for the daytime hours on Thursday. That does return again, just with that front. If it lingers over our area into the afternoon, which it may very well do, as long as that front's over us, that potential there, or in our area, that potential there is there for more thunderstorms, and more thunderstorms can produce not only those heavy downpours, but unfortunately localized flooding. So that is what we'll watch for the daytime hours on Thursday, especially going into the afternoon. By the evening, again, that risk for rainfall, excessive rainfall will fall off as a lot of these showers and thunderstorms are tapering off by the end of the day on Thursday. Now, when it comes to the potential for severe weather, again, I think we can still see the potential for some strong to severe thunderstorms into Thursday afternoon, in addition to localized flooding. The higher risk, though, may come from what we see overnight Wednesday. If this line does hold up, if it falls apart by the time it reaches us, then maybe a little bit higher risk with respect to that time period going into the latter part, into Thursday afternoon. But the certainly higher risk in the tri-state areas is a Wednesday night. And you'll notice further towards our west, that's where we're seeing that higher risk. So especially areas west of us have a much higher risk for severe weather Wednesday into Wednesday night than they do into Thursday. That severe weather outlook present, even showing an enhanced risk. That's where we get more numerous severe thunderstorms. That's well towards our west. And then that slight risk extending through central Ohio. And you'll see the trend there, the lower risk further to the east, right? And that's just in line with the timing of that line making its way further to the east. So as we extend further into the night, the risk for severe weather will fall off. Now, unfortunately, this is a situation where, we're not going to be certain until we see how conditions are setting up for tomorrow and how they're continuing into Wednesday night. And it is a situation as well, just watching how that line maintains its strength as it makes its way across the Buckeye State. Now, that being said, there is good news in that regard. While, there is some uncertainty in that regard, we're not going to be watching these develop over us Wednesday night. We're watching that line move into the area. So it is something we can track and monitor going throughout Wednesday night. So it is something that, we can keep up to date with and track as it moves across the Buckeye State, and something we can continue to give updates on going throughout tomorrow evening and into early tomorrow night. So, if you stay tuned in, keep weather aware, we may very well start to see these weekend, possibly even over East Central Ohio, maybe even to be able to call a low severe risk even before they reach us, if they're falling apart across East Central Ohio. So if they're maintaining their strength, across East Central Ohio and areas near Zanesville, Muskingum County, Holmes County, Amish country, into that East Central Ohio area, if they're maintaining their strength, move into the I-77 corridor, then can also raise the alarm in terms of this is likely going to still possibly produce some high winds as it makes its way into our area. So there is some nice, there's certainly some, there's a silver lining there in that regard that, we're able to track this across Ohio. We're able to see if it's weakening or still maintaining a strength before it does reach us, and be able to, keep you updated as we go throughout tomorrow evening and into tomorrow night. So that is the thing to watch here as the flooding risk lowers tonight. That would be our following round to watch is again tomorrow night, getting as a timing now likely closer to midnight for tomorrow night. So that is going to be the following time period to watch. And then again, Thursday, possibly some localized flooding, maybe a strong to severe thunderstorm lingers going into the afternoon. And then we dry back up by the end of the day Thursday. And this does start then likely a dry period of weather from Friday and through the weekend, and even likely through early next week. And this is just has to do with a pattern change. We get into not only a mainly dry pattern, but a hot pattern as well. That is what our future holds for us by this weekend. That will carry over into early next week. Roberts has saying hello and good evening there, Heather. Thanks for tuning in. Jerry Amos is watching. Thank you very much for tuning in. Mother Nature not giving us a break. I know, Austin, here near term, this round after round of these showers and thunderstorms and the potential for impacts as well, unfortunately. Thank you for the weather update. You're welcome there, Larry. Thanks for tuning in this evening. Water can be a powerful force, hoping it continues to stay a lower risk. It certainly can. It's horrendous to see, Lola, yes. And hopefully, thankfully maintaining a low risk overall for Wednesday, but again, our time period after this evening to watch would be going into Thursday as well. So once we get past Thursday, then thankfully, we don't have to worry about that, risk for any severe weather flooding. Thankfully, is we're likely dry from Friday going even into early next week. Terry saying another day of rain ahead. I know, unfortunately. I know. How bad will this heat be on Sunday and Monday? So we'll dive into that Sean, here coming up. So that's our rain outlook. We'll dive into that. We're getting to that point now. We're going to start talking about the heat coming up going into next week. Thanks for the update. Prayers to everyone affected by the flood. Absolutely, Renee. It was horrendous to see. Thoughts and prayers still remain with those that were affected by that flooding in Ohio County. It was horrible to see. That's for sure. So this is what's going to change our weather pattern here near term. It's a change in the upper air pattern. So, where we're at right now, earlier into the week, you'll still see that there's some what we call ridging further west of us. So there's some drier conditions as we look further west, and that's what we're going to be watching. So notice as this ridge progresses further to the east, and actually not only progressive for the east, it actually starts to amplify. So what you're dealing with this type of upper air pattern with the jet stream residing towards our north, the conveyor belt for our weather makers. So we're dealing with more of an active weather pattern as we look back further towards the Pacific Northwest. So there's where our weather systems will go, and they'll go up and over the ridge. So that'll keep a lot of those weather makers towards our north and keep us dry. And under that ridge, you're dealing with some drier conditions, and you're dealing with the heat building. So under the ridge, it's typically pleasant weather, and the heat builds under the ridge. So it's why as we set up into this ridge going into the weekend, and it just lingers over our area into early next week, these temperatures are going to ramp up. So that is what we're going to be watching for in terms of the potential for impacts into early next week. That's what we're going to be keeping a close eye on. I'm not really sure why it looks like we might have issues with our weather software. It's not showing. Let me pull something else up and let's see if we can see it another way. Looks like, issues pulling that data in. It should be there. Let's see if we can get it here with our high temperature forecasts. Oh, interesting. Well, we're going to be diving into that. Hopefully we can get that fixed before coming up here at the 10 o'clock. But let's jump to our 9+1 day forecast. So that should not be changing. And then we'll come back to it because I wanted to touch on the heat index as well. So let's jump into our 9+1 day forecast. We'll get to those temperatures here. They should show up here. There we go. So going into the weekend, our temperatures are really ramping up. So by the time we get to Friday and Saturday, we're back, well in the 80s for the start of the weekend, and then even 90s by Sunday. And this is our first 90 plus day. Our warmest temperature we've had so far for this month is 84 degrees. And we're likely surpassing that and even closer to 90 by the weekend, maybe surpassing it for Wednesday, but certainly by this weekend we will. And that'll be our first 90-degree day so far of the year. Our warmest day so far is still 86. That was back in April. We're going to be likely even surpassing that by the time we get into the weekend. Our first 90 plus day, it's possible to reach 90 Saturday. It's more likely by Sunday, and then we'll string together at least a few days there, likely 90 plus. That can constitute our first heat wave of the year as well, is looking likely by the latter part of this week and early next week. So it's nice to see this dry weather. It's unfortunate, though, because this heat can be dangerous in terms of how hot it's going to be. So I know, there can still be, unfortunately, some folks that are dealing still with some power outages going into the weekend and dealing with excessive heat. So I know that is of deep concern as well as we look into the weekend. It's nice to be dry, but unfortunately, this heat is of some concern by this weekend, and that will carry over into early next week. So we factor in that heat and that humidity. Let's see if we can see the heat. Our heat index is going to show up for us. There we go. So our heat index, this is how hot it can feel. So we're factoring in humid conditions and we're factoring in hot conditions. So when you factor in the heat and the humidity, this is how hot it can feel to us. So by Saturday, even though we may not reach 90, we could very well feel like it. So we may come up short, but it can feel like it's 90 plus Saturday. By Sunday, it's going to feel closer to 100 likely, and then you can feel into the 100s Monday and into Tuesday. Temperatures picking up at least towards the mid 90s. We'll see. Maybe we'll trend even warmer into early next week. But as it stands now, we look to trend closer to the mid 90s. And again, it's turning unbearably humid for the weekend. That'll carry over early next week. And I think at times, maybe even Sunday, but certainly into early next week, I think we can see that heat index reach 100 plus and may even end up with some, heat products issued by the National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh, as this can be to the point where, you would use extreme caution with dealing with that high of a heat index, maybe even into the danger zone, depending on how high we can see these temperatures climb early next week. So certainly looking ahead to that is going to be something to note, just the excessive heat that we'll likely see in place this weekend, continuing into early next week. That is something we're going to keep a close eye on. Once we get past Thursday, again, we still deal with some of these showers and thunderstorms up until that point. By the end of the day, Thursday, then our attention will turn to just how hot it's going to be Sunday and into Monday. Jody saying prayers for no flooding. Thankfully, flooding not coming to fruition for us so far for this evening. We're still tracking some showers and thunderstorms in our area. Flood watch does remain in effect until we extend leading up to 10 o'clock is the flood watch. And that just coincides with, as the sun sets, we'll notice a lot of this activity likely taper off as well. You notice those red polygons, that's where that flash flood warnings have been occurring further towards our east. So more into the central western part of PA towards Johnstown. This is where we're dealing with those flash flood warnings. So the flooding is unfortunately occurring east of us, but thankfully for us here, Eastern Ohio, the Northern Panhandle, we have not had any flash flood warnings issued for our area going throughout the day. We've still been dealing with some heavy downpours in spots. We're still dealing with some heavy rain in some locations, especially as we do look closer towards that Wheeling area. Thankfully, this is progressing fast enough that it's still producing some heavy downpours, but it's not lingering over the same location. That has certainly been the saving grace of today. It's a couple reasons. I think number one, we had enough cloud cover today that it kept a lot of those heavier thunderstorms and those torrential downpours out of our area. If we were to see more sunshine today and more of a favorable environment to see these thunderstorms continue to mature, I think that's where we would have had a higher concern for flooding. If we were to have more thunderstorms and even stronger thunderstorms in our area, that's where we would have got torrential downpours. Don't get me wrong. Still some very heavy downpours within these thunderstorms that we did still see today. I'm just saying that if we were to see a little more sunshine, destabilization in the atmosphere, it would have been an environment more favorable for those stronger thunderstorms that then would produce some very, very heavy downpours. And that, I think, that would have yielded a higher flooding risk for us going into this evening. So thankfully we had, the rain throughout the day, the cloud cover to keep a lot of that, I think, at bay. That being said, yes, still some heavy downpours. Again, the storm progressing, the movement still fast enough that while we're still seeing some heavy downpours, it's not lingering over the same location, which is what we had this weekend. We had these thunderstorms this weekend. They would develop, and the location where they developed, they would essentially remain. There was very little storm movement throughout this weekend, and that is not the case for today, and that will not be the case as we go through Thursday. We are not repeating that from the weekend. They will have much more progression. The issue would have been, again, the fact that we would have had some stronger thunderstorms and some very, very heavy downpours. If we were to get some rounds of heavy rain, if we were to see that storm and then a storm behind it track right over the same location, that training effect of these thunderstorms, that's where the higher risk for flooding does occur with this type of setup for not only today, but again, going into Thursday. That's what we'll be watching for, is that thunderstorm after thunderstorm after thunderstorm, that training effect of these storms just continually moving over the same location. That is what to watch for, not the fact that these storms are developing and where they develop, they just linger. It's going to be more of the setup of the continuous rounds of storms over the same location. That's what to watch for as we do extend going through Thursday. That is the setup that can yield some additional flooding in spots as we do extend going into the weekend. So yes, I know there's still some rain moving back to the Wheeling area right now. Thankfully that once this passes, right, there's not another storm to move back into the Wheeling area. You're still going to see the heavier downpours as this moves through the Wheeling area, but thankfully it's progressing fast enough that once it moves through, right, there's not another storm right behind it to move back into the area. So still we're going to be watching as it continues to progress. We're still keeping a close eye on it. This has been moving from northern Noble through southern Monroe, now making its way towards Wheeling. Not produced flooding yet along its path, and we'll still continue to monitor it. Thankfully, while it has had some heavy downpours, again, just the fact that this is progressing, it's still moving, right? It's not lingering over the same location. So the movement is keeping the flooding concerns at bay so far as this has progressed further towards the east-northeast. As Hammond says, thank you for mentioning hometown areas. You're doing a great job. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Also saying, I don't like how the heat index looks for Monday and Tuesday. I know. Now, it's unfortunate that the heat's really ramping up here into early next week. It's nice. It's nice that we are not, seeing that rain likely for Friday and quite possibly even through early next week. Rain chances look very low. That's great, but it is, that's great. But on the other side of it, that, for some of those that are still dealing, with the aftermath of the recent flooding, it's not good that we're dealing with that excessive heat either. And that can be something of concern into early next week. So it is unfortunate, but we'll certainly take it. I think, we'll take that over dealing with the possibility of more torrential downpours and flooding. But that is just something to note. So, it's one of those times this weekend, early next week, be there for your loved ones, your friends, your neighbors, those, that were impacted by this flooding over this weekend, and, help them out, right? Have them stay over in your house with air conditioning, get them out of the heat, right? And just be there for each other, really. That's the best way I could put it. Just be there for each other this weekend, early next weekend. And, of course, all of us here in the Ohio Valley continue to, send our thoughts and prayers to those impacted by that flooding. It's just a heartbreaking situation in Ohio County. There's really no other way to put it. And again, we are seeing this heavy downpour moving back in. The latest radar scan is showing that even weakening. There's a weakening trend there. So heavy downpour, yes. Weakening trend, good. Round of heavy rain, yes, but not another round of heavy rain. So again, we'll see some heavier rain move in. The radar trend, it's weakening. So the intensity of that's even weakening a little bit. Then notice we do not have another storm to follow that's back further to the west. It's St. Clairsville. Some rain, but not another storm. And that would be our issue. The concern with flooding for this evening is if we were to see another storm in the wake of that one, right? That round of heavy rain after round of heavy rain. So yes, some heavier, you're going to notice the rain picking up there into Wheeling, but we're seeing it weakening. It's a good trend. So yes, some heavy rain, but the trend of the radar scan, it's weakening and not another round of heavy rain to follow that one. Good. It's good to see. That's what we want to see moving into the area. I know we don't want to see any rain, but it's good that the scans, it's weakening as it's moving in, and we're not dealing with another storm in the wake of that one. And that is the higher threat for flooding with the setup that we had for today, is that round after round of heavier rain moving over the same location. Jody says, so scary for everyone, and definitely for the ones that was already flooded. Absolutely. It's horrific. It's a very scary situation there, Jody. John saying, thanks. You're welcome, John. Thank you for tuning in. Jan saying, God bless you. Thank you. That's very sweet of you, Jan. I appreciate that. Thank you. Nicely said, Nathan. Thank you there, Lola. My brother was affected and it scares me. I understand. I truly understand. It's a horrific situation dealing with the flooding. And, it is unfortunate that we have that potential again going into Thursday. We're going to closely monitor this, have multiple ways to get the warning, right? So if a warning were to be issued, the phone's going to be a great way. If you have the money, a weather radio is a great investment. Those are going to go off in the middle of the night. A lot of them, you can plug in, but also have battery backup in case you lose power. But those will sound really loud going off if any warning were to be issued, whether that be severe weather warning, a severe thunderstorm warning, a tornado warning, or flash flood warning. Those are going to go off and be able to wake you up and get you that warning, and to be able to, seek higher ground if you live in a flood prone area, or seek shelter, if it is a tornado warning. It can be a great investment. That's a great way to receive the warning, is a weather radio. Obviously, smartphones, again, going to be a great way. Local radio, TV. If you have multiple ways to get warning, it's best. And again, I think the two best ways is through your smartphone and through a weather radio to get those warnings when they are issued. And I think even better, especially overnight, is the weather radios that will sound the alarm to be able to wake you up in the event that a warning were to be issued. So it is those are the best ways. And in the event of a tornado warning, a siren, outdoor siren, not recommended. What can happen is that heavy rain, hail, high winds, it can muffle the sound of the siren. I understand if you live right beside one, you still could possibly be able to hear it, but it is not recommended to use that as a way to receive the warning. So on a typical day, if you were to hear that go off when the conditions are quieter, you may not be able to hear it when you're dealing with that heavy rain, or when you're dealing with those high winds or possibly hail. So that's why it's not recommended to be used indoors. It's a good tool outdoors. It's still recommended as a way to get the warning if you're outdoors, but not inside. It's just something to keep in mind. Weather radio, smartphone. I think, in my opinion, the two best ways to get that warning. And it is best to have multiple ways to get a warning in the event, if it's a flash flood warning, tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning. Having multiple ways to get that warning is the best, the best way to be safe. It is. And have a plan in action as well. So, if the warning were to be issued, have a plan on where you're going to seek shelter in the event of severe weather. And of course, plan of action where you're going in the event of, and how you're getting there, right? In the event of flash flooding. So have a plan in place and be able to, activate that plan when a warning is issued, and have multiple ways to get that warning. So there's a continued radar scans. Again, some heavier rain in Wheeling. The radar scans continue to show a weakening trend, continuing to get good news there, where you're seeing some heavier rain move back to the Wheeling area, but not getting that continuous rounds of heavy rain. We're still seeing that intensity continue to lower a bit, scan by scan, making its way back into Ohio County. Outside of this, as we broaden our view, as we look across the area. We're seeing the coverage, a lot of this rain falling off north of I-70. We look south of I-70, seeing a little greater coverage, but still not much of real heavy downpours in place. The real torrential downpours in place, I should say. Still some fairly heavy downpours, even within showers, but those real torrential downpours that bring flooding concerns that have been largely remained further towards our east. That's where a lot of them currently still reside. We see those green boxes, polygons. That's where the flash flood warnings are in effect. That has largely stayed east and out of our area. We have had one closer to us in northern Allegheny County, north of Pittsburgh, but not one into eastern Ohio and the northern Panhandle. So we're leading up closer to 9 o'clock. That flood watch in effect till 10 o'clock. So we're on the downward trend at this point in terms of dealing with flooding risk. So the flooding risk is going to start to diminish at this point, at this hour. It will continue overnight. So the risk is lowering at this point. It does look low for tomorrow. Again, Thursday is the day to watch then for that potential for flooding returning as the setup like we just discussed. That would be if you're dealing with that storm after storm of heavy downpours occurring over the same location. So they're having enough movement, much like today. But if you can get some stronger thunderstorms that produce those torrential downpours, and if you get some rounds of those, then flooding is possible. It does look to stay more isolated on Thursday, but there is a possibility for that Thursday. The emphasis will be going into the afternoon. We can have some rain around in the morning, but when we see those storms start to gain a little more strength, if they do into Thursday afternoon, that would be the time to watch. By Thursday evening, we're likely drying up across the area, and from there we look dry going through the weekend. Severe weather concerns returned before Thursday for tomorrow night. That would be a line of strong severe thunderstorms. The timing of that can vary some. As it stands now, it looks to be closer to midnight. The highest and the worst of that, the highest risk for severe weather and the worst of it's likely west of our area, more into central western Ohio. But that being said, it still can maintain enough strength by the time it reaches us to produce some damaging winds. That'd be our primary concern with that tomorrow night. By Thursday morning, then that risk for severe weather will fall off later on tomorrow night into Thursday morning, but it can pick back up with flooding potential as that cold front moves in their area. It's still lingering over area in the afternoon. That then we can see, if we can see some of the stronger thunderstorms develop, then there's that potential for some severe weather in addition to some localized flooding. A potential for both of those. Not a high risk for either, but there is potential for both of those into Thursday afternoon. And by the time we end the day Thursday, those risks will fall off. The rain will fall off altogether, and then we start a quiet stretch of weather Friday through the weekend, early next week. It's just the heat to watch for by this weekend and early next week. It's the heat. So the temperatures are ramping up, 90 plus likely. We could get 90 Saturday, but especially by Sunday and at least into Tuesday of next week, likely. There's that stretch of a few days where there's great odds that those high temperatures are 90 plus. It's unbearably humid, just like today. But when temperatures reach to that extent, then it can feel closer to, if not into the 100s at that point for a heat index. So that's where the heat gets excessive, and it can be, really can be dangerous. And when the heat reaches to that extent. As Hammond saying that the News 9 weather app, be sure to set up the areas and allow all notifications. Yep, great way as well there with your phone. And if you have the News 9 weather app, it's a very handy tool. It'll give you a heads up on rain heading your way, if lightning was detected near you. It'll obviously give you any of the watches, warnings issued. It is, like you mentioned, it's a great tool to have on the smartphone. Obviously you'll get alerts sent through. This is automated alerts that are sent through your phone. But if you have that app, it is an it's a very handy additional tool to have if you download the Severe Weather Team 9 mobile app. Hi there, Trey. Thanks for joining us this evening. And yes, unfortunately, it is unfortunate to see a lot of this rain into our area. It is unfortunate. And the good news, I think, for tomorrow, the overall coverage of this is starting to drop off tonight. It's much more hit or miss, I think, in place for tomorrow. And it's more widely scattered tomorrow. I think tomorrow can end up a bit drier with respect to today. And then tomorrow night into Thursday, coverage will pick back up and we'll deal with some scattered showers and thunderstorms coming our way into Thursday. By the end of the day, Thursday, then we're going to dry back up. Trey's saying it's going to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Can you tell me anything coming on Friday? It'll be good on Friday. It's going to be getting hot there in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, Trey. That ridge of high pressure developing this into this weekend is going to keep a lot of the eastern United States dry and hot. That's where we're going to see a lot of eastern Ohio Valley, and likely into Pigeon Forge, Tennessee as well, Trey. So anything coming on Friday? Likely not, but again, it's at that point just watch it going to turn hot for the weekend. That'll carry over to early next week. So, but no, likely going to stay dry there, Trey, on Friday. And going to Dollywood as well, Trey says. Suzanne says, chimed in a double rainbow. Check that out, Suzanne. Thanks for chiming in. A double rainbow for us for this evening. And I'm going to Dollywood. Yeah, Trey mentioned that. So let's take a look at closer to. Let's zoom back in here. And what we're still monitoring and for the Wheeling area, still continuing to see downward trend. So scan by scan, we've been noticing that storm that was moving into Wheeling weakening. So it is a blessing to see. Yes, I know still some rain there, some heavier rain, but notice that we're seeing by scan that we've been seeing that storm that was moving into that area just continue to weaken, and the trend is down. So it's what we want to see. So certainly good to see that downward trend as it's moving in the way into Wheeling. And we also good to see that there is not, as we look back further to the west, another storm to follow, right? And so good to see that, some rain moving in, but we've seen a downward trend. So starting to get less and less intense with each scan. And we're also seeing the rain that follows not real heavy as we look back towards St. Clair as well. So good. It's good to see. We don't want to see any rain, but it's good to see that the rain is moving in the area. Not real excessively heavy, right? Not torrential downpours. Still on the heavier side. Even within showers today, with as much moisture is present in the atmosphere, even within showers, I know this rain's fairly heavy, but it's just good that we're not getting that real torrential downpour moving over the Wheeling area. And there's another scan coming in, continuing that weakening trend. Good to see. Continuing that weakening trend across Ohio County. And as we broaden our view, looking back further to the west, there's some showers still to follow. We can see a few showers persist throughout the night. And the same story again tomorrow. We can't have these widely scattered showers, maybe still even a thunderstorm in the mix tomorrow. It's just that thankfully that risk for severe weather, the risk for flooding, both look low for Wednesday. By Wednesday night, the risk for severe weather will pick up, but it is a bit conditional. So that's a situation where we're just going to be watching a line of some strong to severe thunderstorms moving east across the area. So as we watch this move east across Ohio, by the time it reaches us, which as of now looks to be closer towards midnight, by the time it reaches us, we can track this across Ohio. So we can continue to give you updates as this progresses east across Ohio. How is it holding up, right? Is it starting to weaken once it gets past central Ohio? Is it weakening as it makes its way towards Zanesville into east central Ohio? We'll watch it moving through Zanesville into the I-77 corridor. At this point, maybe it's weakening for tomorrow, and we can then give the heads up of like this is weakening. The risk for severe weather for us is lowering. This line is weakening. Maybe there's still some strong gusts there, but overall, we're not dealing with a large swath of high winds coming our way. So that's a possibility. That's the good news with this, is that we're not watching these develop over us tomorrow night. We're watching the line move into the area. So this is something we can see develop to our west. We can track it across Ohio, and we can watch its progression across Ohio. So it's something that we can continue to update you on hour by hour going through tomorrow evening and tomorrow night. That's certainly good in that regard. Once that line passes, then we'll likely notice that risk for severe weather drop going into Thursday morning, and it can pick back up, at least to some degree, into Thursday afternoon, where we could see some strong to severe thunderstorms redeveloping Thursday afternoon. And that's when that potential then for localized flooding would exist. By Thursday evening, then, once we see that front move across our area and out of our area, it's going to take the rain chances with it. And we'll notice then not only the rain chances fall off, then any impacts fall off by Thursday night. And that will then continue with a lack of, the rain chances look very low from Friday through the weekend and into early next week. And obviously that one just keep the potential for any flooding or severe weather in very low as well with the rain chances. So certainly good there. We got to get past Thursday. Get thankfully for tomorrow, as we'll still monitor the few showers and thunderstorms that could be in place. We'll keep a closer eye on that period of tomorrow night and then again into Thursday afternoon. So that is what we're going to be watching for as we extend over the next couple of days. And of course, I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on everything throughout the latter part of tomorrow. I'll be staying here as long as needed tomorrow night. If we're dealing with severe weather into our area past that midnight mark, be right here. Could very well be dealing this, Facebook Live. If we're dealing with, multiple severe thunderstorm warnings, I'll keep you guys updated throughout tomorrow night. Always here, keeping a close eye on this throughout the week, and going to obviously keep a close eye on things, how they're continuing into Thursday afternoon as well. So keep a close eye on everything and keep you guys updated over the next couple of days. And then we can thankfully look forward to some drier weather from Friday into early next week. Certainly going to be nice to see a break from this rain, likely for likely a handful of days. Trey saying, what is the app called? WTOV. If you do WTOV weather, it should pop up for you, Trey, or WTOV9 weather. It should pop up for you, our weather app. What's the tornado risk? Suzanne says, it does look like the tornado risk stays further west of us. I think damaging winds is the primary concern, Suzanne. It looks like the primary concern for us would be damaging winds as it stands now for tomorrow night. So it does look like that tornado risk is going to be staying further west of us. The hail risk likely further west of us, and it's more of a damaging wind is what we're going to be primarily concerned with for tomorrow night. That's what we're going to be watching for. Trey says, what's your name? Nathan Shutt, meteorologist Nathan Shutt, Trey, here at WTOV9. For Nate at 8, that's where the name comes from. Nate at 8. For meteorologist Nathan Shutt, we do our segment here. Nate at 8 is what you're watching. That's our segment that we do here throughout the week at 8 o'clock, or roughly 8 o'clock throughout the week. So there's Look Alive radar. I'll see if, give me a minute, I'll check up on, see if the National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh has noted anything as of recent. I believe they were just talking a lot about essentially what we were talking about. Essentially what we've been talking about here near term, talking about cutting some off the watch shortly. So we'll keep an eye on that. Extending the watch possibly into the overnight hours for some locations. And then we're talking about along that I-70 corridor. Along this I-70 corridor, especially where we're already dealing with those flash flood warnings further towards our east, towards Johnstown. But just noting, these thunderstorms here closer to the I-70 corridor and then further south, likely more so out of our area. They may continue that watch. We'll see. But they're going to start to cancel that flood watch for a portion of the area. So keep an eye on that, and I'll post that update and see where they're going to continue that watch here and for how much longer into the overnight hours. 9 o'clock, the watch again in effect till 10. It looks like they're going to be canceling, though, for some locations even before 10 o'clock, and they'll continue at for some areas, maybe even a little bit further into the night. So we'll see where they're going to continue that. The National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh. It looks like they were, essentially, I think really along a lot of what we were saying, essentially, tracking some of these showers and thunderstorms in the area. Joe says Bel Air just got a downpour. Lola says, thank you for your dedication towards keeping us weather aware and safe. You're very welcome, Lola. I appreciate it. Absolutely. I'm here to get the word out and, keep a close eye on everything. And, if we're dealing with severe weather or flooding, trying my best to get that word out there and making everyone aware. And we're certainly going to, keep a very close eye on how everything's setting up. Like I mentioned, be here as long as needed tomorrow night if we're dealing with severe weather moving into our area. Suzanne says, Severe Weather Team 9 does a great job keeping us safe and informed of the event of severe weather in our region. Thank you, Suzanne. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. Trey says, any supercells? Not right now into our area. Into our area, Trey. What about South Carolina? I can look down towards South Carolina. I'm going to have to change. Okay, let's look towards South Carolina. And yeah, about that, there's definitely looks like we have some more severe weather down that way for sure, towards Greenville, Edgefield. Yeah, it definitely looks like a good line there of severe weather that's into South Carolina. Towards Augusta, Greenville. See if I can drop south there of Asheville. But yeah, definitely some stronger storms moving through South Carolina at this hour for sure. This is a line of multiple cells progressing through Greenville and Edgefield. And this is more so that and less of a individual supercell thunderstorm moving through that area, but still nonetheless definitely getting some certainly getting some very strong thunderstorms moving through portions there of South Carolina at this hour. But yeah, back looking at Eastern Ohio, the Northern Panhandle, the trend continuing to weaken there into Ohio County. So we've seen that just with each trend, thankfully continuing to weaken. The intensity of that rain as a storm progressed into Wheeling, but then thankfully weakened, making its way over Ohio County. We look back further to the south, our strongest cell there is into the very southern part of Wetzel, very southern part of Wetzel County. That's where we're seeing some of the heaviest rain right now. So we can get back to, there we go. It's a little better look. That's our flash flood warning. Let's drop that. So there's where getting a thunderstorm affecting the very southern part of Wetzel County. Still some heavier showers there into Marshall County. Thankfully, staying south of Ohio County in terms of the heavier rain. Each radar trend, thankfully, has shown weakening of that over Ohio County. And, thankfully not another storm to follow looking further to the west, right? So certainly good to see at this hour. And further north of I-70, there's really not much rain at all, is there? There's looking at light return towards Youngstown, another light return moving towards the northern part of Guernsey, but not much precipitation to be had at all in general north of I-70. A lot of this is along south of I-70 at this hour. And we're starting to see that downward trend of coverage of showers and thunderstorms. And we'll likely see that trend just continue as we go through the night. Jordan says, do we have a tornado warning? No, we do not have a tornado warning in effect for our area. We did have some further east of us into PA as well. I did note there was some tornado warnings into parts of PA, but nothing that was issued here into Eastern Ohio or the Northern Panhandle. And the same with flash flooding as well. We've had some flash flood warnings into PA, but nothing here in northern Panhandle, West Virginia, and into eastern Ohio. We have not had any warnings this year. Thankfully, that flooding threat and the severe threat stayed east and out of the area for today. And I think that trend continues for this evening. And for the most part, I think the risk for flooding is going to start to fall off overnight, remain low then for the daytime tomorrow. And then we'll watch again. The next potential there for localized flooding does look to be Thursday, going into Thursday, primarily going into Thursday afternoon, and the potential for severe weather Wednesday night, and then again possibly going into Thursday afternoon. So those are the time periods to watch for impacts that we could see continue going into Thursday. By the end of the day, Thursday, then a lot of this rain is tapering off. And from there, we'll notice that much drier weather lies ahead for the weekend and into early next week. Suzanne said it's starting to get foggy out. And yeah, we could see some fog at times. This pattern in place, we have the dew points are the limiting factor to how much we cool for a lot of the nights this week and into next week as well, that we can deal with some fog at night, especially in the wake of some rounds of rain and some clearing. That's going to be the setup that can yield even some dense fog. So we will be watching for the potential. That potential is there really for a lot of this stretch. It's just that when we deal with a lot of cloud cover, it can keep that fog more at bay. But anytime we can get some clearing with this kind of pattern in place, that's when we certainly can set up to see, and especially in the wake of some rain, certainly can see some fog develop for these mornings. And it can be dense. If it's following up with some clearing and heavier rain earlier into the day, certainly can get some dense fog into these mornings. Jordan's saying, thank you. You're welcome, Jordan. I don't want tornadoes. They scare me. Have nowhere to hide if we get one in the coming days. Hopefully not, Jordan. The risk for tornadoes looks low, thankfully, for us. What we have tomorrow night would be more high winds. We can deal with some high winds with that line arriving. As of now, it looks to be closer to midnight tomorrow night. The good news is, again, we'll be able to watch this line move east across Ohio, and we'll be able to track it. So, we'll be able to, it's still some uncertainty now before it develops, but once it actually does come to fruition and develop into the western part of Ohio back into Indiana, once we see that develop, then we can track with more certainty it across Ohio, and we can actually watch it move across Ohio and see if it's continuing to weaken or if it's maintaining its strength. So once we start to see that develop and going through the evening hours tomorrow, there's going to be much less uncertainty in terms of the potential for severe weather for us and the intensity that it can have. So that is the good news. This is not a scenario where they're developing over us and we're not sure where they're going to be developing or how strong they could develop to be. It's less of that. They're not going to be developing over us for tomorrow night. They're going to be developing further to the west and then tracking over us. They're going to be tracking into our area. So that is the good thing with that severe potential tomorrow night. It's just that setup where we track it moving into the area. It's good that it's arriving as late as it is. That will just naturally lessen that risk for severe weather for us as it does arrive overnight tomorrow. It's never good to have severe potential overnight, but it does also help just naturally lower that risk for severe weather. But that is one thing we'll be able to watch it and then track it. So that is a good thing with tomorrow night. Is we'll be able to track it across Ohio. And like Suzanne said, download Severe Weather T9 mobile app, absolutely. And you can track it with the radar. With the Severe Weather T9 mobile app, it'll keep you updated on estimated time of when rain's near you to its arrival, any lightning detected near you, and of course, give any watches or warnings where if they were to be issued, it would alert you on your phone as well. So it is a very handy tool to have, that Severe Weather T9 mobile app. A very, very handy tool to have. And one way to get that warning, right? One way to get a warning. It's on your smartphone. It's a great way. And then behind that, in my opinion, the two best ways would be from that and from a NOAA weather radio. If you can't afford one, I think it's a good second backup to the smartphone NOAA weather radio, because a lot of those you can not only plug in, but they have battery backup as well. So even if you were to lose power, it's still going to operate. And those are going to sound loudly into the night if a warning were to be issued with automated voice that goes over the NOAA weather radio that will alert you to what kind of warning it is, potential impacts, plan of actions. It is handy tool. So I think those are the two best ways. Obviously, if you can still maintain power, you can tune into the TV to get that warning. It's going to scroll across the bottom of your screen. If we're breaking in with the tornado warning, you can watch the coverage there. Of course, on computer as well. For like our live streams. I mean, that you watch on your phone too. But it's just the internet, I guess, is a good way to put it. Another good way, social media, and to get those warnings. Really, another way on the smartphone. But it's just best to have multiple ways to get the warning in the event of if one were to be issued. Have multiple ways to get the warning, have a plan of action in place to be able to then execute that plan in the event of a warning. Suzanne says, have the app, weather radio, and TV. Good deal, Suzanne. Yeah, have multiple ways to get a warning is certainly best. It's certainly best, especially going into the overnight hours. Having something that's going to actually go off in the middle of the night to alert you in the event of a warning issued, whether it's a flash flood warning, tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning going off, and being able to wake up to that, and then have a plan of action, seek shelter, have a plan of action in the event of a warning. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to continue to keep a close eye on these showers and thunderstorms throughout the evening. We're going to be watching for that flood watch, which extends until 10 o'clock. The National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh is talking about starting to cut back on that watch. Have not seen that yet, but they were in talks of starting to cut back on it. So we'll be watching where the watch continues. Maybe they'll extend it into a little bit further tonight for some locations in the Tri-State area. So I'll continue to update you on that here throughout this evening. Again, keeping a close eye on this leading up to 10 o'clock. I'll be here, obviously for the News 910 on Fox 9 News 9 tonight at 11. Give you the latest updates on where we stand with everything at that point. And of course, be back for tomorrow as we'll continue to track then for some showers and thunderstorms continuing as we do extend going into Thursday. So I'll have to bring you the latest on where we stand with that as well. Shay giving a question here. How can I get a warning if I live in an SOS service area? Cell coverage doesn't work. Power goes out. I have no Wi-Fi. So try, if you can, try a weather radio, NOAA weather radio. You may still be able to get that service of a weather radio. You may still be able to get reception. Try a NOAA weather radio. All that, that doesn't require, the Wi-Fi. It just requires you cover, to pick up that frequency of the weather radio. Not to say that's a guarantee you're going to get reception in your area, but that's probably what I would try. If you can get a NOAA weather radio, you can buy them at a local store. I think Walmart has some. I'm not sure the price, may be $30 or so. I'm not sure. I know it's not real cheap, but if you can get one, I think they are under 50. Hopefully they are at least under 50. I'm not sure exactly how much, but I know a lot of those. Some of them you can plug in and have battery backup. Some of them are just battery. But if you can have one of those, obviously you want to leave it on, and try to find the frequency to where you're getting it picked up. And those will, hopefully you can still have reception to where you live with that. And, those are the ones that, they'll play the automated voice, right? If a warning were to be issued, it'll loudly alarm too, to be able to wake you up. That was likely the best way to get the warning in that situation. Suzanne saying 69.99. Suzanne saying the frequency is 69.99. She thinks of picking up that NOAA weather radio from National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh. So that's hopefully that works for you, Shay. Hopefully that a NOAA weather radio can work for you to be able to pick it up. And certainly, When you do get it, take it home, try it. If you get one, take it home and try it. Make sure you can pick it up and have it ready, and then just leave it on, right? Just leave it on to be able to get that warning. And it's nice those ones that are able to just plug in and then it has a battery backup. I know some of them are like that, not all, but I think that's the best option in that scenario. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Again, I'll continue to give you updates going throughout this evening. Newsnight at 10 on Fox 9, Newsnight tonight at 11. You can follow me on Facebook as well as X, Nathan Shutt News 9 on Facebook, and Shut WTOV, I believe, is on X. So I'll be posting updates as we extend here over the next couple of days. So you can always catch the latest on my Facebook or X page, whatever social media you may be on. Probably a lot of you tuning in on Facebook. So if you head over to Nathan Shutt News 9, I've posted more throughout this evening and continue to post updates as we go through Thursday. Need be, absolutely, we'll be back here doing a live stream if need be tomorrow night or into Thursday, keeping you guys updated here over the next couple of days. Until then, again, we'll be back here tomorrow evening for the latest going into Thursday. As well as for tomorrow night. So make sure to stay tuned for that next edition of Nate at 8 tomorrow evening around 8 o'clock. I hope all of you have a wonderful, safe night. And again, we'll be continue to keep our thoughts and prayers with those affected by the recent flooding, and continue to pray that we do not have additional impacts into our area here through Thursday. So hopefully does not come to fruition, but we're going to keep a very close eye on it and keep you updated the best I can on where we stand with everything through Thursday before we get back into a much drier stretch of weather for the weekend and into early next week. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Have a good night. I'll see you on the next edition of 8 at 8.